Welcome back to Clear the Cash. I'm your host, Nate Liss. You can find me on Twitter at @AnOutragedJew. And of course, the brains behind the whole operation, pretty much everything. I'm just the arms and legs. Jesse Bak. You can find me on Twitter at planet_fatness. Jesse, last episode, we ended the show by talking about these Allen and Ginter egg cards that were selling for $2,500 for this gold egg card. And we reached out to this massive listening audience and said, does anybody know why there are egg cards? And does anybody know why the egg cards are actually having multiple bidders bidding hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for them? And Jesse, we had a patron reach out in the Discord chat, which if you guys want to find it, go to my Twitter profile. I constantly am posting about the Discord chat. We have a free one. People can jump in, sell cards. We have a market, a chat. It's great. And inside of that, one of our good patrons gave us the backstory to what the origin was of this card. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but did it not have the name Kylie Jenner in it?
So the backstory of the card, I had no idea until earlier today when I saw this link from Blowout Cards that was posted on the Discord from the Konami card. And I guess the post is back from it's from 2018 or 2019. And Kylie Jenner set a record on Instagram, or one of her personal records of setting the most likes or getting the most likes from just any post on Instagram. So I think she hit 30 million likes on a single post. And there were people who wanted to, I guess, manipulate Instagram to the point of, we're going to post a picture of an egg and we're going to try to get more likes on this picture of an egg than Kylie Jenner did on her Instagram post. And they did it. They beat Kylie Jenner. So this, I've seen on eBay before, and I haven't researched the backstory until I saw this post today on the Discord. It's basically referred to as the Kylie Jenner rookie card. Basically, Topps, Allen, and Ginter decided to make this Instagram post into a card. So that's why there are several people out there that refer to this as the Kylie Jenner rookie card.
The origin is even worse. It's even worse. I was reading the quote, and I might tweet this out here. It says that, in a nutshell, Kylie Jenner posted a birth announcement which set a record for likes at the time of 18 million.
Okay, 18 million. I got a little ahead of myself and overzealous. I said 30,
Kylie
but
Jenner
18,
gets
that's still
a
a
lot
shit
of
ton.
likes. She has a huge following, so not a bad guess. I don't know how many bots are hitting but whatever. Then it says, but an anonymous poster then posted a picture of an egg, which went viral and had 60 million likes. 60 million likes. CNN wrote about it. Wired wrote about it. New York Times wrote about it. And the egg was born. And I mean, as we've talked about, there's serial numbered of 5, of 1 gold eggs, base eggs. It's gone way too far. But they're popular. And I was reading posts of people that were literally riding this wave and selling them. And people were legitimately chasing down these egg cards. So that's the origin story for anybody that cared to know. Those cards are, I want to tell you, worthless, but in the short term, clearly not. Clearly they have some value. So scramble and go buy some right now. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. That one was loaded from last week. So Darren Ravel, who you may personally may or may not be a fan of. I'm assuming not necessarily a fan of, but you're a pretty balanced individual. He posts on Instagram the other day a comment basically talking about the card market getting softer. And his comment basically says on January 31st, 2 Jordan PSA 10 Fleer rookies sold for $738,000 each. Then he mentions tonight 2 sold for $492,000 each. Then once again, he goes back to January 31st and says a Jordan PSA 9 Fleer rookie sold for $73,000. And then tonight, 1 sold for $36,000 or roughly $37,000. He says the card market looking soft heading in 2 huge auctions tonight in Memory Lane and Golden. Time for the people who openly boast about this being the first inning to put their money where their mouth is. Initially, what does that comment mean to you before we read a response from Shine?
I think it's unnecessarily threatening, and I'm not sure what he has against the card community and even the card investor community. So I personally, I consume a lot of content myself, and I listen to other people in the community, and I have heard and have been told personally that, we are in the second inning, we are in the first inning, we are in the third inning. I think that's kind of garbage analysis because nobody knows. I don't know what inning we're in. I don't think we're at the end, but we're definitely reaching a lot of hype right now, especially with Golden Auctions and Ken Golden going on CNBC and Fox Business himself talking about all-time sales records of random cards on his platform. But that's probably the one thing I'll agree with Darren. The first inning analysis is just complete garbage because nobody really knows. But I don't really understand what he has against the card investment community. And this is coming from somebody who Darren's into Top Shot himself. He's a big investor and believer in Top Shot and NFTs. And he also, I told you pre-show, he's not that quite into just traditional rookie cards of just, common sports or common athletes or all-time greats. He's into kind of oddball cards and even signed checks of old Major League Baseball players. So one of the cards I think that he still might have in his possession is a PSA 10 copy of the Rock. I guess it's considered an XRC card while he was on the University of Miami football team. That was produced by, I think, Bumblebee Tuna. So just a really oddball card out there. But so it's not like he's against sports cards altogether, but it just seems a little unsettling that he's taking this type of shot towards the card investor community and the cardboard community.
I mean, at any point in time, you can take a snapshot and say, this is what everything is now. And when we look on a long graph, clearly it's not. The market's been hot for a long, long time. But it's interesting because this is what he did. He cherry-picked some information, made it work to his benefit, and then said, hey, this is a sign that everything is going the other direction. And then kind of in an effort to sort of throw a jab, he said, put your money where your mouth is, right? If you still think things are so great and we're seeing a $300,000 change in these cards, then put your money where your mouth is and go buy cards again, go buy expensive cards. And I don't know that Jordan is the same way that Bitcoin is to other cryptocurrency. I don't know that because Jordan Fleer rookies are doing whatever they're doing, that's necessarily affecting everything else. The way that when Bitcoin's price drops, you see lots of other cryptocurrencies drop. Because in the cryptocurrency world, everything is very tied to the success of Bitcoin, where in this market, if you're a fan of a player, then you're a fan of a player irrespective of what's happening with a Jordan rookie. Most people could never afford a Jordan rookie, and you can't buy fractions of cards. I mean, you can on websites, but that's not really what's taking place. You're literally buying the equivalent of a whole unit. So you don't really care per se what's happening with Jordan the same way you would with this, but it's more interesting because someone you put me on to, his Instagram is Shine150, who has one of, would you argue, the most impressive card collections in the world?
I think he has like a top three collection
So
like on planet Earth. This guy
So
is
this
an
guy
insane
is
collector.
invested. I
Yeah.
mean, he's financially invested as heavily as any one person can be. And he responds to this comment that Darren Ravel posted, and he says, accessible, highly transacted cards pulling back is a healthy, normal correction. Irreplaceable cards that rarely transact won't pull back 30% like a Pop 300 Plus card. Also, these high realized sales are incentivizing people to sell their rare cards and allow them to change ownership for those profits. There is definitely a lot of big cards hitting the market at once, but in due time, most of those cards will settle into new collections. So, Jesse, when you hear Shine, a guy who is, I mean, a figurehead in what's taking place universally, make this statement as a counter to what Ravel said, what do you think?
I honestly couldn't have put together a more well-rounded response myself, because when I read back his response, kind of just breaking it down, it's crazy how, especially in the modern card market and era, with PSA 10 prism based pop counts going well over 10,000 for several young stars and up and coming stars, and probably approaching 20,000 plus. I'm looking at Luka and Zion. It's crazy how a card that as old as the Jordan Fleer rookie PSA 10 with a pop of over 300, how that's not considered a low pop card, even for as old as it is. So if we talk about a card from 2017, that's a pop 300, that's really low. Even a card that was produced last year, that's considered a low pop card. But I think in his mind, like, I mean, in reality, a pop 300 card, that's not like a super rare card. At some point, you will probably see a copy of that card pop up on eBay or Instagram or wherever. So if those cards if a card like that, even like Jordan, if it goes up 10x over the course of a month and a half or 2 months, there are going to be owners of that card that, don't really feel super comfortable holding on to a card that's rapidly approaching close to $1 million. And it's not the most rare card. There's going to be a Jordan card, if not already, that is going to be more expensive than the Fleer PSA 10. If you look at like something like the 1997 Michael Jordan PMG Green, which only 10 of them exist, that's like the most expensive Michael Jordan card. That puts the 86 Fleer PSA 10 to shame. That's how expensive that card is. But yeah, I mean, a card that is as iconic as that card and has a pop of over 300, you're going to see a price correction in a card like that if it 10x's. So I wouldn't call 30% plus pullback, I wouldn't call that a crash. I'd probably call that more of a market correction. But it's just that just kind of caught my eye, that even something with a pop as low as 300s, how that can still be looked at as a pretty frequently transacted card. It's not going to be, the rarest of rare cards. So I like that point of his analysis. Then he goes into talking about how people are incentivized into selling rare cards. And usually these individuals are people that have had this card in their collection for a decade or longer. And they just, again, they feel uncomfortable with the amount of money that they'd potentially be leaving on the table. God forbid, like their house burns down or something and their cards are in their house and all of a sudden they lost $500,000 or close to $1 million. So they honestly feel uncomfortable having it in their possession at that point. And there's nothing wrong with taking profits when you have hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table in profit alone. So I like that point of his analysis. And then you're going to be seeing, somebody who bought that card for over $700,000, which there have been multiple copies of that card sold for over 700K, they're going to have diamond hands. So they don't care if the card drops by half. They're not going to panic sell, because these people can, like, those individuals can basically afford to put hundreds of thousands of dollars into a piece of cardboard that's graded. So they're going to be in it for the long term. That's going to be a major PC card for them for quite a while. And that's honestly one of the most iconic cards in probably the history of the hobby. It's probably going to be close to up there with like the Honest Wagner T206. So even though it's not as rare, it's just about as iconic. So there are going to be people that aren't going to be thinking about letting go of this card, even if I guarantee you there are going to be sellers, or there are going to be owners of this card. When it reaches $5 million, they're not even going to be looking to sell, just because they think it's going to go up more. So it's interesting how, a lot of people do play into the long game, and they want a card like this for basically close to the rest of their lives, or when they want to pass something down to their kids or grandkids, or want to, whatever, they save up money for their retirement. And that's when they're going to finally be open to parting with the card. So there's a lot of people that are in this for the long term, and even Ravel is kind of looking at this a little short-minded and a little short-sighted himself, and saying, oh, well, this car sold for $700,000 last month, and now it's 400K. Put your money where your mouth is and buy another one. Like, he's just, I don't know. It's you have no idea what this card is going to look like 25 years from now or 50 years from now. Like, you have no idea. This, like, $5 million could be like a drop in the bucket compared to what it actually could be decades from now.
As I'm hearing you say this, it's reminding me of something that you texted me the other day, and I'm wondering if there's a correlation between the tweets and this, the Instagram responses that we're reading right here, and sort of your philosophy. Because the other day you text me a phrase. You said that there's comfort in crashes. What did you mean by that?
So if you're buying at the peak and you're looking for a short-term flip, which I wouldn't advise doing so with these types of cards, it's honestly so this is a theory that best applies to cards of all-time greats and Hall of Famers. You can see that with peaks and high sales volume of a certain card, that there is sufficient demand in that card, in that player's card market. And the reason that I kind of saw this is because I saw a card that I own, a Michael Jordan rookie card that I own, that's basically dropped close to 60%. And when it hit its peak, I was even hesitant to sell myself, because within my lifetime, I think this card can reach six figures. And I never try to exaggerate with what prices can hit. I try to be realistic, and I think in my lifetime this card can hit six figures, and it's significantly corrected to basically crashing within a month or 2 months time. So it almost kind of incentivizes me, or makes me think out loud about even purchasing a second copy of that card if I see that it can hit a ceiling like it's hit. So corrections or crashes can bring the card right back into your price range, which, even though it's probably still more than what you bought an original copy for, there's still going to be another bull run, and there's still going to be people that are going to be holding on to this card for the long term, and regardless of how much it goes up for. Price corrections lead the way to a new higher floor and a point of stability in that card's market. So let's say, and I'll be totally transparent in my example. I had this listed as an example for the show, so I'll be transparent. I have a 1986 Fleer sticker Michael Jordan PSA 9. I think the total pop of that card is like over 1,800, but we haven't actually talked about qualifiers before on PSA slabs. certain PSA slabs, mostly older slabs, they can have qualifiers on them. So under the grade, if it's not a 10, if it'll say PSA 9, and then underneath the 9, it'll say in parentheses OC for off center, or ST for stain, or whatever other qualifier. There's like 10 plus qualifiers that PSA can label their cards as. If a card is graded and has a qualifier, it's generally far less valuable than just a regular PSA 9 of that copy that doesn't have a qualifier at all. It just has a Michael Jordan Fleer sticker, PSA 9. I bought into that card maybe a month or two after the Jordan documentary came out, and I bought it for around $2,600. Nate, I was texting you. I texted you a couple times about this card as it was peaking, because all of a sudden, like in the blink of an eye, this card was sitting pretty, steady in the $4,000 to $5,000 range a couple months after I bought it, and all of a sudden it hit 15K, and then it hit 20K, and then it hit 25, and the card peaked at $33,000, and I'm like, well, shit. I mean, at this point, I probably should have bought 2 or 3. If like, I've spent that amount of money on other cards. So I might, instead of buying those other cards that I didn't really even care about at the time, besides, taking a quick profit or making a quick profit, I should have just bought 2 more copies of that Michael Jordan. So as soon as it hit 30K, I'm like, oh my, I'm probably never gonna, it'll be years if I ever am able to get another copy of this card again. And all of a sudden, within the last month and a half, a lot of Hall of Fame and all-time great cards have basically crashed. And by crash, I'm talking about like a 60+% dip in price. And now that PSA 9 Fleer sticker Jordan rookie is sitting around like $10,000 to $12,000. And it's basically back into a price range where I basically feel comfortable spending that money now on that card, even though I didn't buy 2 or 3 copies when they were $2,000 to $3,000. I at least know that card has already had a trajectory of over $30,000. So that honestly makes me feel far more comfortable buying at the new floor now than I was pre $30,000 or $25,000 run up. So this this honestly kind of wanted me to, take a couple minutes and talk about it on the show. And I've had other experiences where I went the complete opposite way. I've moved, a couple of LeBron James rookie cards that have basically 5x to 10x while I've had them in my possession. I honestly felt uncomfortable holding them just because I'm figuring, God forbid anything bad happens and this is tens of thousands of dollars down the drain. Something like that would kind of made me feel a little uneasy. And so I sold a pretty valuable LeBron rookie first, and then I kind of wanted to take a different approach with the MJ and just kind of see where it went. And now I'm seeing the crash that's coming after, and I honestly I don't feel phased at all with a card like that, just because that's a card that you really don't want to let go of, if you're able to have the capital and means to acquire one. So if anything, I'm kind of in the process of even getting a second one myself. And like I said, there's a bunch of all-time greats. Card prices are taking serious self-corrections and dips in the meantime. And when there's blood in the streets, that's when the real buyers make their money. That's when people who are looking at it from a pretty financially realistic mindset, that's when they jump in and buy, because they've already seen the peaks that those cards have
it's a good point. Like you've seen that peak. It's like unrealized air yards, right? You're like, man, that guy, he's not that good. He was 3 for 23. And you're like, well, he had 7 targets. And if he would have caught all of them, he would have been 7 for 148 and a touchdown. And you're looking at these cards and you've now seen the ceiling. So we know that it's not its future ceiling. Like it could go well beyond that. That's just where it's been. And now that we know it's been there, it's far more comfortable buying in at 5 times the original number. But you mentioned that you've seen, all-time greats, cards, recently going with price corrections. What are a few names of note that you can remember that you've seen it happening with?
Yeah, honestly, the Jordan sticker, if you can acquire that card, and basically I'll just kind of put an arbitrary grade out there, like a BGS 8.5 or above. If you have the means to acquire a card like that, I probably would, and just hold on to it and just forget about it. Don't like pretend like it's almost not even in your collection. Even if I'm sure we have listeners out there that haven't, they've been listening to our episodes, but they haven't even bought a card themselves and are just looking to seriously invest into something. If you haven't bought into anything yet, and you just want a piece of history that you think will appreciate with time, just steadily, might not 10x in a month, but it won't have the same risk as ultra modern cards do. The Fleer sticker Jordan is honestly a great way to go, because that's going to be a card. I personally believe the PSA 9 copy is going to be $100,000 card in my lifetime. We've seen the PSA 10. The PSA 10 has far fewer copies than the 9, but strangely enough, that PSA 10 actually hasn't really gone down. So the PSA 10 is probably out of any of our listeners' price ranges. That's a multi-$100,000 card. But I'll count the Fleer sticker PSA 9 and below as a play as well. But 5 other athletes that I've seen myself actually that have either price corrected or basically crashed within the last 30 days. So my first play is the 81 Topps Joe Montana PSA 9. This is, a lot of these cards are basically more expensive plays. These are for true investors who have the capital to basically invest in cards like these and be comfortable with holding them with a good amount of time. So the 81 Topps Joe Montana rookie PSA 9 peaked for over $5,000 in early February, and its last sale went over just a touch above $3,000 within the last couple of days. So that dropped over 40%. Not quite a crash, but a pretty big price correction. Even Jerry Rice's rookie cards, I'm looking at his 86 Topps PSA 9 and BGS 9. They've both corrected to just about 50%. The BGS 9 is especially an insane value because that's gone down like 55%. It peaked over $3,500 in mid-February, with its last sale a couple days ago going just under $1,700. The BGS 9 even presents a better value than the PSA 9 does. Then next, I was looking at the 86 Fleer Akeem Olajuwon, which is, it's kind of considered his rookie card. He's kind of in the same position as Jordan, where he was drafted in 84, but in 84 and 85, basketball didn't really have many licensed card products. So just like Jordan, his 86 Fleer is technically considered his rookie card. Olajuwon's 86 Fleer PSA 10 sold for a pretty penny in early March. It sold for $25,000, and its last sale within the last couple of days sold for $11,000. So from 25 to 11, that's over a 60% drop. Even the PSA 9, a far more reasonable option for probably a lot of our listeners out there, that sold for a peak of $3,800 in early February, and now it's down to basically $1,200. It's almost down 70% in just basically a month and a half, which is just absolutely insane. Next is the 92 Topps Gold Shaquille O'Neal PSA 10 and the PSA 9. The 10 sold for over $11,000 in early February. Just most recently sold for just over $4,000. That's a drop of 63% in a month and a half. The PSA 9 has dropped even more critically. It's down almost 70% in a month and a half. Then I looked at the 96 Topps Chrome Allen Iverson base PSA 10 and BGS 9.5. The PSA 10 peaked for almost $10,000 in mid-February. Now it's below $4,000. So that's dropped about 60%. The BGS 9.5 has dropped for over 60%. So honestly, these cards, these aren't, very palatable, like quick flip types of cards where, you put 5K into something and you expect it to go to 25,000 the next month. But these are cards that, there are going to be inevitably bull runs. I don't think this is going to be the last time where we're seeing cards like these that are 3xing or 4xing in a month or 2 months time. We're going to see bull runs like this happen more often. But even when we don't, and even when sports cards are even in a down market, we're not going to see these cards go down as much as we're going to see like a Luka base Prism PSA 10 go. So these are going to be cards that no matter how the market's doing, over time, steadily, they will go up.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, you've done so much research on these and to identify these big name players that have cards that, like you said, they're going to go back up. They're more expensive than the entry level purchase prices that I think a lot of people are accustomed to. But it's exactly right. You're speaking to that one person or those few buyers out there that have, $2,000, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, and they want to spend and they want to put it into something that's a sure thing. Well, these are some great options. Like you said, it's hard to determine exactly how much the change will be over time. You're not going to get massive wins instantaneously the way you would with some other smaller purchases, but you're talking about some of the best players amongst every sport right here. And if you've ever wanted to get your hands on one of the most elite cards in the history of production, these are the ones right here. And Jesse did all the legwork for you. With that being said, Jesse, looking for big jumps in card value, the other day I tweeted out and messaged you that the select Kyler Murray field level silver PSA 10 card that I had purchased back in January had sold. I was not ready for it to sell. I wasn't ready to let it go. And I was especially not ready to let it go because you and I were just texting hours before it sold. And it's a bittersweet feeling, and I'll explain why in a minute. But for those of you that remember, probably a month and a half ago, Jesse and I were talking about how I was on vacation and we were texting back and forth, and there was a seller, and I think it was the same seller, and he had 6 or 7 lots of PSA 10 Kyler Murray field level, silvers. And we're like, man, this guy's got so many of them. And he had them going up for auction. And one after another, they were closing at like $1,400, $1,450. And Jesse and I had a hard line in the sand. We had talked about it. We're like, we're not going to spend more than $700 each. Now, flashing forward just 2 months, it feels like we should have spent way more than $700, right?
The only thing that made me uneasy about, and why I was such like a stubborn jackass about not spending more than $700 each, is because at that time eBay had, like you said, this guy had 7 copies of his own and basically selling in lots of each other. So he had maybe like 2 lots of 2, and then the rest were singles, or 3 lots of 2, and then he had a couple other singles. So in addition to that, there were a couple of buy it nows for a little bit more than basically what his auctions were going for. And I got a little uneasy, and I'm like, this, like I said, like we talked about before, this isn't, it is a low pop card for a modern card, but it's not like if we miss out on this now, we're never going to see it again, or it's going to be a year until we see it again. So I was pretty convinced that at the time, the football market was just going to keep dropping, and prices were still up because the playoffs were going on. But even at that point, from the start of the season, they've definitely dipped. And I was just being stubborn. I'm like, Nate, we're going to be licking our chops when we can get these cards for $600 each, and we're just going to be picking them up left and right, whether it be on StockX, MySlabs, eBay. So I was convinced. I'm like, dude, we can't go above 700. Like, we have to stay disciplined here. And I've talked about this before. on the guest episode we had with Rob. And sometimes, like, if you really believe in the card, if you think that the card is going to go up inevitably, whether it becomes start of the season or in the long run, like, what's $50? Honestly, what's 50, especially if it's a PSA 10, what's $50? What's going an extra 10%? Like, really, in terms of, if you really believe in the card, or you believe in the player, like, what's the harm in going a little higher than you normally would? I mean, don't go like 2x, but what harm does 10% do? So honestly, that was an error on my part of not budging above 700. Dude, if I went above 700, we'd easily have, like, you could have had 2 more copies, and that's that's on me. But what the crazy thing is that, as Nate told me about his sale, and I've seen Nate's listing on eBay, and I think it was like 1550 OBO, and the buyer bought it for 1550. And I go back and I do my own research in terms of tracking all time sales records for certain cards, and I wasn't able to find any data saying that this copy of this card has ever sold for $1 over $1,400. So Nate, you've set an all-time high with this Kyler sale, which is just that's absurd. So I mean, you got to talk about. How that feels too.
I had no idea that, number one, it was the all-time high, because it's interesting. You were the one that really identified this card, and you're like, look, this is one of Kyler's most premier cards, believe it or not. It had a pop count of 300 or 305, whatever it was, and you're like, we have to get one. And in hindsight, I wish I would have acquired more. And again, in the trying to be transparent here, the card that I sold when I bought it for $750, which was essentially $50 more than Jesse and I were going to spend as in combination to win some of these auctions. And in hindsight now, I wish we would have won a couple auctions, because the guy was selling them $1,400 for 2. I just sold it $1,500 for 1 in literally 60 days. And it's pretty surreal because, I had the card listed about 8 weeks ago, 2 months ago. I listed the card on eBay, and I put a buy it now offer of, like you said, $1,450, $1,500, and it just sat. And it had, I messaged you, it had 3 watchers, and you're like, wow, that's pretty good, man. It's got 3 watchers. And gradually, it got views, and I was paying attention to it, and my watcher count really hadn't grown. And I would say like 4 weeks had gone by. JJ Watt signs there. AJ Green signs there. This buzz is building. And about 3 weeks ago, I got an offer for the card. And of course, it was a lowball offer in relation to what my price was, because at this point, the cards were only selling for, $900, $1,100, $1,200. I mean, it was in that range, but I was higher than it. So they were trying to get a discount. So guy, offers me $1,000. I write the sweetest response of all time. I'm such a nice guy. I'm like, hey, thank you so much for your offer. I appreciate it. I'm firm on my price. I think this card's going to be worth more in the future. So if you'll meet me at my asking price, it's yours. And, I got declined one after another, because I would respond to them with a counter offer of my asking price again. I didn't lower it. I'm like, boom, $1,450 or $1,500, whatever. And I did this once, twice, and then suddenly I was getting 2 offers a day. And some days I got 3 offers, and they were coming in. I was like, tell my wife, I go, look at this. I'm getting offers. Like, as I'm showing her, it's like, bloop, you have an offer. I'm like, what is happening? What is Kyler Murray doing right now? Is he just like live streaming, throwing 80-yard balls on the field? Like, why is his market so hot? And I went back and looked at some of the declined offers. And one guy told me, and I quote, he's like, you're a fucking idiot. You're never going to get $1,400 for that card. Good luck anyways, or something like that. So I'm messaging with you as I'm getting hit with like waves of card offers every day. And you go, and I said, I passed on a deal that was $1,200. I go, should I have taken it? And you're like, wow, you're getting a $1,200 offer. That's impressive. You go, no, I wouldn't take it. I think this card could be worth $2,000 come preseason. And I'm like, shit, man, I'm listed way under that. So I'm texting with my buddies and I'm showing them these offers as they're coming in. And I go, after I'm done with my workout, I go, I'm going to change the price. I have to move it up because like gradually these offers are getting closer and closer. And I shit you not, before I could even finish my workout, boom, somebody had bought the card. And it's so shocking to me that this hype driven momentum had pushed somebody into buying this card for a price that, as you mentioned, is the highest of all time. But what's really interesting, and I text you this, is that there were other PSA 10s available for less expensive than my card. And some of those sellers had, more transactions on their account. And again, mine is flawless, but I thought the difference might be pictures. Maybe it was the fact that I was a little more expensive, and sometimes people find comfort in paying more for things because they must assume it's a better quality. I don't know what it is, Jesse, but irrespective of that, the Kyler Murray market is rising.
I think it's only going to go up from here, honestly. And before I even comment on Kyler Murray, using insults to basically try to get the seller to lower his price, that's a bold move, Cotton.
Didn't work for
I don't
him.
know if I'd call. If I'm interested, if I'm interested in a card, I wouldn't call the. I've seen some questionable prices myself, but of cards that I'm interested in, but I wouldn't call the seller a fucking idiot to his face. So that's kind of a bold strategy. It's happened to me too, and I've honestly, some people are just they're just jackasses. But you come out the winner here just because you sold the card for the amount that you had it listed for. But I think with this card, Kyler's two main more expensive rookie cards, if you're not looking at like Immaculate or National Treasures, if you're just looking at like a base or silver card, his two most sought after cards are going to be his rookie Prism Silver PSA 10, which actually has a pretty, like, we're talking 300s as a low pop. That card's pop is like 115 or something. So that card's even more rare than the field level silver. And then of course we have the select field level silver PSA 10, which we talked about, the pops in the 300s. So those are going to be his two most sought after silver rookie cards. I think the Prism Silver PSA 10, I think that card might hit 5,000, and that's not that out of the question. It's already kind of approaching there. I've seen a bunch of them listed. I've tried to acquire them myself. I've seen a bunch of them listed for over 3,000 to 4,000 right now, and we're not even in training camp. We're preseason. And a couple days ago, I saw a Josh Allen Prism Silver PSA 10 sell for over $8,000. And I mean, I know he was, for a hot minute, he was kind of in the MVP conversation this past year, but so was Kyler Murray. I mean, he had a crazy like 6-week stretch or something in September, like late September to early November. So it's not that unforeseen that his Prism Silver PSA 10 goes for $5,000, and I don't think it's unforeseen at all for the field level silver PSA 10 to go for 2,000. So I think there's not much, knock on wood, that is going to drive Kyler's prices down, unless if, like, God forbid, there's some sort of Sean Watson-esque scandal, which, pray to God that doesn't happen. But I mean, it's kind of only looking up from here for somebody like Kyler.
I felt the bittersweet part of it is when it sold. I was like, yes. I was like, that's awesome. It feels good. It sold for twice what I bought it for, and I bought it for $750. I mean, that's such an incredible win for literally, working with you, identifying the right card, spending money on it, sticking it in a closet, and not doing anything. And then one day just going, okay, now I'm going to put it on the internet, and then boom, here's $1,500. What's bittersweet is when you're like, you could get $2,000 for that card in the future, and then in the blink of an eye, it was gone. So, I took it to ship it, and we talked about this. We had, Brad Ziegler had something go down where he got scammed on the sale of a card. And I even messaged him before I shipped this card, messaged you as well. I mean, it's not the most expensive card that was ever sold by any means, but the card that he got scammed on was about the same price. It was a $1,500, $1,600 card. So I was also concerned about the shipping of it, so I looked at the seller. They had a flawless transaction, history, only six buys, sells. But it was all positive. It was all recent. He was in the United States, so a lot of the boxes were checked, but I still took a video of myself packaging the thing, took a picture of the label. I was at the shipping place, and I didn't insure it because the insurance on this particular card at its, valuation would have been about $80 to $90 on top of everything else. So I don't know where your head's at with insuring a card like this. Like, what would be your threshold that you would go, okay, I'm going to spend the $100 to insure it?
Brad honestly gave you great advice in terms of recording yourself. If you don't want to be out, $1,500 or even the amount of money that you put into the card originally, $750. If you don't take the sale into account, it's honestly not a bad idea. Just recording video recording yourself, packaging the card, showing the card, front and back, so that the PSA serial number or BGS serial number can be very clear on the camera. You have to definitely show the packaging as well, show the label, show everything. Just be as transparent as possible during the packaging process. But in terms of insurance, it's tough to put a number on when you should look at insuring the card. I've personally, honestly, you have to look at your profit margin. So if it really cuts into your profit margin and you're not even making, like, let's say you bought a card for, I don't know, $1,500 and you're selling it for $2,000, that's really cutting into your profit margin. So I don't think I'd really want to insure something like that for its full dollar value. But if I had to put a number on it, maybe if you sell a card for $3,000 or more, that's probably not the worst idea to just, buck up the insurance money for it as well. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but to each their own. Like, everybody has their own comfort level, and even if you're okay with, potentially $100 or $120 cutting into your profit margin, but at least you're not out $1,500. Like, it just depends on what you're comfortable with and how you want to protect yourself. But definitely, recording yourself, packaging the card. If you feel it's a sufficient amount of, if it's worth a sufficient amount of money that you don't want to be out of, it's not a bad idea to film yourself packaging the card as well, just as kind of like your own little self-insurance.
And just so people know, I mean, Brad is an ultra experienced memorabilia collector, card buyer and seller. So this wasn't anything on him necessarily, just so people know, and you can look this up. But the deal was the card was going international. The sale was to a Canadian buyer. And because of that, there was going to be a longer shipping time on it. And what had happened was the guy had purchased the card. eBay had initialized the transaction. I think the money was temporarily on hold for the sale. Brad shipped the card. And because there was such a long lag time in between, this person put a stop payment on the purchase of the card, said it was a fraudulent purchase. But by that point, the card was already going. And in hindsight, Brad looked back. The person had no previous purchases on eBay. They had literally had zero for a transaction history, which is like an ultimate red flag, which raises a question. I know this isn't on the sheet. If you listed a card for $1,500 or whatever, and somebody gave you that best offer price, and it was a case like Brad's, but let's say they're in the US and they had literally zero for their eBay history, what would you do in that case? It's got to make you nervous.
I would.
Because are you not, by the terms and policies of eBay, aren't you essentially bound to having to make the sale. I know you can refund it and there's ways to get out of the sale, but what do you do? Because really you're discriminating against this buyer in a way because of this number.
That's really tough. If it really makes you uncomfortable, I would honestly probably just be respectful, explain yourself, just be like, listen, like, zero feedback buyers who don't have, like, their accounts were made yesterday and don't have any purchases or sales history. Like, that's a big red flag. I even though I would like to take this money and to ship you the car, like, just to play it safe, I'll give you your money back. And we can just kind of forget about this. It might, honestly, that it could hurt they could report you or complain about you, but I think in the long term you're protecting yourself, and I don't think there's really anything wrong with that personally. If I had a card that was even, like, let's say it was worth $1,500, and I have a couple of watchers and I'm getting offers from a zero feedback buyer who offers me $25 less than my asking price, and I have an offer from somebody who has 100 positive feedback, and they offer me $100 less than my asking price, I'd rather go with that 100 feedback buyer than that zero feedback buyer. Just for the peace of mind. I'm not saying that there aren't bad, like, or questionable 100 feedback buyers out there. Like, you never know. There are people that have even transacted on eBay thousands of times, and just like occasionally you're just like, one time they'll do something wrong. They'll do something that isn't exactly kosher. So you can't, truly, like, put really anybody in the highest of regards, but honestly, zero feedback buyers, that's one of the bigger red flags on eBay, especially when you're looking to sell to an individual like that.
eBay made it right with Brad, but obviously that card is not coming back. I mean, that card is long gone now. It's somewhere deep in the heart of Canada. I mean, it's surrounded by maple syrup. There's no way it's ever coming back. So it's gone. But the point is, when you're buying and selling cards, you do need to be aware of who it is you're selling to. Typically, I don't think there's as much concern, obviously, with the buyer, but all of us started with zero transactions, zero history, zero feedback. So it's something that I've also tried to do when people are good. The money comes quick, or it's a nice sale. I try to make sure that I respond to everybody because it's valuable to them, it's valuable to me, and it's part of the reason I was probably able to flip this Kyler Murray for what I did, because I was somebody that paid on time. People were giving me good feedback, and those relationships get built, and it will help you and it'll benefit you in the future. So Jesse, we got a box break going on after this. We got to get ready, get our minds right for what we hope to be one of the most epic Prism hobby box breaks of all time. Fingers crossed, guys. Follow Jesse on Twitter at planet_fatness. Find him on Instagram at flippity-flip-cards. Man, bang.
You got it.
Perfect.
Flippity
Find him on
cards.
there. You can see his incredible collection. And we will be back with another fantastic episode, because we left a lot on this show sheet. So we have plenty to get to next week on Clear the Cache.